All right. We're live.
I think so.
If we're not audible, if you guys are having an issue hearing or seeing us, let us know. This is our first live stream.
Audio test.
Yeah. There we go. Some ASMR for you to start off the show. So today is our first live stream for the NoPlan YouTube channel. I'm kind of excited.
I'm excited too. I know it's a little abrupt. This is something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and we are wanting to get into it pretty much, I'd say, once a month is what we're shooting for.
Yep. And we want to kind of probably have it around the hour-long time frame, but we're totally open to suggestions if you guys have a preference on show length and stuff like that. We want to hear from you so that we know what you guys would prefer to see. So definitely let us know. But tonight's going to be a little bit shorter of an episode. We're also testing out the internet. We're at our office right now, and the internet is not great. So for our first episode, we're going to see how this goes. So jumping off into our first subject really is last night. Last night we were on a great other podcast, Tech Over Tea with Brody Robinson. If you guys are not familiar, it's a fantastic show and YouTube channel, and highly recommend you check it out in general. But we were on last night. It was a pre-recorded show, so it should be going live on his YouTube channel very soon. I think it might even be in the next hour or two. We'll see. But we had an absolute blast being on Tech Over Tea, and we are very appreciative of him having us on.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it inspired us, and it worked out just at the right timing to start our own podcast. So.
Yeah, this is, like we said, our first. So one of the things that we actually talked about last night, which we wanted to talk about tonight anyway, which was fantastic, is the future of operating systems. Mm-hmm. And so you had kind of a few things in particular you wanted to talk about. Take it away.
Well, I just got an email, it was yesterday, that Windows 10 support is closing. I believe it's October that Windows 10 officially no more support. And there's no talks, as far as I can tell, of them extending that. I think this is going to be the solid cutoff, as Microsoft is full send with Windows 11. And so that kind of puts me in a bit of a hard place because I've got a lot of stuff that I use that's Windows specific. And also SteamOS has not released. And that's kind of one of the OS I'm really waiting for.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. My guess is, my prediction is that Valve is going to release SteamOS for full desktop release by the time that Windows 10 ends support, because that just is too good of a target to not go for. I feel like they're going to probably announce it maybe even within days or a couple of weeks of Windows 10 going end of life.
I could see them doing that, but I also could see, especially since they just had SteamOS on the Lenovo Legion Go, I could see them potentially waiting because potentially a bunch of new gaming laptops running SteamOS.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see.
That's kind of the possibility, and then that changes the market even more and reduces Windows because why would manufacturers pay a license for Windows when they could just use SteamOS for either free or significantly cheaper, I assume.
Yeah, and sometimes even subsidized from what I've heard about, like the Lenovo Legion launch, but I could be wrong on that. Speaking of which, I just got myself a Lenovo Legion. It's the Z2 Go version, not the Z1 Extreme. But I have been loving that thing, and one of the highlights is definitely SteamOS in itself. It's a very smooth experience. There's no question about, is it going to chug or is it going to download background updates or anything like that. It just is a very clean and smooth experience, and the hardware itself is fantastic. But one of the things that's kind of interesting about the laptop idea is right now there are so few AMD gaming laptops.
That's true. It's basically all APUs.
Well, they're all APUs they're NVIDIA typically. So you're going to have to see OEMs also invest in some AMD based hardware, or you're going to have to basically just get SteamOS to run the NVIDIA drivers, which is definitely possible, but that means that that Valve is pretty much going to have to work with NVIDIA to get those drivers to be officially supported,
which would be interesting
and
to
an
see.
Easy setup.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if they're going to do that, because I know NVIDIA is all on their AI warpath, but also there's the whole idea of Intel, having their potentially, I guess, APUs. I know that that's not something they've really done
Yeah.
But that's something that they, especially with their new, is it Battle Mage cards?
Yeah, and there's also XE graphics, which are definitely getting better and better. The thing about the idea of Intel becoming the dominant one for Valve is Valve has not really shown any love towards Intel. I don't think even on on the original Steam consoles, you actually had Intel based consoles there.
Right.
But since they've switched to this whole new architecture, the original Steam OS was based on Debian. Now they're basing it on Arch, and they've stripped out so much from Arch, and they've pretty much built it around AMD entirely. So I don't know. We'll see. Because if they do release a general access ISO, they're probably going to have to make it to where it can support Intel, but also probably install NVIDIA graphics if they want to see any kind of real adoption. It's not a good answer to say, well, if you want to use our operating system, you have to use AMD hardware.
Yeah, that severely limits it, and I honestly see that being the way forward with them, because with SteamOS, people are already so excited for it. They've got to get that NVIDIA, I guess, market share for it to succeed. And then, of course, with the backing of Valve, I see SteamOS taking off pretty dramatically. And, with Windows 11, I think they have real chance here to grab and make a large section of the market very happy. Just depends on if they capitalize on it.
No, absolutely. I think people are basically begging for an alternative to Windows. I mean, Windows is at is it 89% market share now? Maybe a little bit lower. Mac has definitely put some hurt on that, and of course Linux has grown. I mean, it's still small, but it has
3
grown.
or 5%. Granted, some of those are counting Chromebooks, but that still counts, I'd say.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, Chrome OS definitely counts. But one of the things that is very interesting to me is how much Windows does seem to be shooting itself in the foot, because it's
that's Microsoft. That's kind of Microsoft's whole history.
It makes more money though, and that's the thing is I don't think Microsoft ever cares whether they have 100% market share. They only care about growing their profits. They're not actually at it like some, person who's just addicted to the numbers on the screen going, oh, we're rising in market share. They're like, where's our profit going?
And that's all business.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really, I'd say there hasn't been since Windows 10 any profit in personal, because, they gave Windows 10 away for free. You could just, make your own USB, install it on how many devices you wanted. You just had to activate Windows. And I think that it's kind of an interesting tell on the future of operating systems, like we were sort of talking about, that a lot of operating systems, or people that are really using desktop computers and laptops, are really going to be professional users or gamers. There's really not going to be, the home computer doesn't exist for most people, if at all. Would you say,
Yeah, we got a good comment from Vincent. He says, I also think SteamOS will be a big thing for gamers. I really don't think there's anybody out there who's a big Microsoft fan.
No, I think no one wants to be on Microsoft. It's just more so, well, this is my program, this is this is my workflow, or this is the game I want to play or mod. Then it works. I have to use it because this is how it works.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, yeah. I'm getting a little sidetracked there. I'm going down many tangents in my mind, but for me, Microsoft went way too far with Windows a long time ago, and I know I'm kind of abnormal in that, but now it's getting to the point where everybody is truly ready for an alternative, and I think SteamOS is rising to the occasion. But we'll see how close they can get. But there's a lot of other distros out there that can pick up the slack, as long as we at least see continued growth with Linux as an option. And one of the ones that you find interesting is Zorin. So kind of hit on, Zorin OS and what are you going to do when Windows 10 goes EOL?
So when Windows goes EOL, I've seen people talk about just extending Windows license to the enterprise version, but that of course requires you to get an enterprise key, which they only really reserve for businesses. So that's a lot of complication there. Zorin OS is kind of an interesting option I've considered, because it is sort of marketed as the closest, if you were on Windows and you wanted to swap to Linux, it's supposed to make that transition as easy as possible. And for me, it honestly has. I actually got my brother on it for a bit, although there was a weird file encryption issue. We actually talked about that on Brody's podcast, which if you want to check that out.
Yeah, again, if you're just tuning in, definitely check out Take Over Tees. Brody Robinson's newest episode coming out soon. We were able to be guests on that, and that was fantastic. But yeah, that was very frustrating to me because we got his brother onto Zorin OS, and it was working great, and there weren't very many hiccups, really.
Really not at all.
It honestly just kind of worked great. But he wanted Photoshop really bad. But besides that, it was a good experience until this problem of Zorin locking down files. And everybody's going to chime in and be like, oh, that's a simple command. You got to do this, or you go here. We looked all through the GUI settings, and if you're a normal user, you go through the GUI. You're not going to be a command line warrior, and you need to be able to have something that you can discover by searching. Mm-hmm. And that's the normal person out there. And, we're pretty advanced users. I use the command line a pretty decent amount. But I still prefer a GUI. But if you want to see a lot of adoption of an alternative to Windows, it needs to have that ease of use.
It can't have any command line stuff like that. And like Zorin is close to that. Mm-hmm. If it didn't have that weird encryption issue, it would have been. I like my brother would probably be still on it. I would probably look into swapping on it more. And the only reason that encryption is an issue is because we have a lot of collaborative workflows, and that if other people try to access those files or they need to get rid of them, they can't because it's locked to that one user. It's a very, very odd issue. But back to my original point, Zorin OS. I found it because I was originally looking for a distro, and I found Linux Mint, installed it on a HP All-in-One. Didn't find Wi-Fi drivers, and this is not a rare machine. It's a very standard, and I was like, this can't be the case. So I found Zorin OS because that was highly recommended for the Windows-esque experience. Worked just out of the box, and I'm honestly really happy with it. And I kind of want to see, with all of Valve's contributions to the kernel, Zorin's going to pick up on that, and if they're going to even try to cater more to gamers, because currently they're more for the professionals. They've got Zorin OS Pro, which that's if you really want to support them, and they also got Zorin Grid, which is something they're doing for businesses, kind of like a alternative to what's the thing Microsoft has? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but basically remote access to systems, so you can basically have an administrator log in to remotely control software updates and user profiles and things like that. And if Zorin can pull that off, that'd be amazing. We've emailed them about it, and they told me that Zorin Grid is still an under development project, but they were going to let us know as soon as it's available. So hopefully they email us back when it's done, and we'd love to be able to show you that.
Zorin, please sponsor us.
Yeah. Vincent writes back in, and he says Linux Mint doesn't require using a terminal much. The drivers things hasn't happened to me, but seems to happen sometimes. And the funny thing is, I've had issues with Linux Mint way back in the day. This was probably like 6-7 years ago. When I tried Linux Mint, and it had Wi-Fi issues as well. The funny thing is the Wi-Fi worked for a good while, and then it stopped working. My question, because you said Zorin did work, my question is if that's because of Qualcomm drivers. Because one thing I do know is Intel has done a great job of just open sourcing everything with their drivers, but I know that some people have an issue with Qualcomm drivers. And so I wonder if Linux Mint has just kind of zapped some of that out of there, but Zorin keeps it because Ubuntu is going to have it for sure.
Yeah.
But Linux Mint loves to be like, we're Ubuntu, but we're definitely not Ubuntu. It's kind of funny, the relationship there. But yeah, we definitely would love to hear from you guys. If you are running a Linux distro, definitely let us know in the chat what you're using. And any recommendations for Jack if he were to, give something like that a try down the road. So future of operating systems, we kind of gotten into Linux a good little bit here. Let's kind of go down the road, though, of like, where is the desktop going to be in a while? Because, I mean, the truth is, everybody obviously is using cell phones. And I know a lot of people who are like, I don't even have a laptop. I don't have a desktop.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen when that continues to happen and people just don't even have them, and are we going to go full cell phone? Or there's like OpenAI, right? OpenAI just released a AI buddy, if you will, or they announced it. I don't know if it's actually out. But what's interesting about this device is it basically takes ChatGPT and it puts it, on a little pendant around your neck, or you can put it in a pocket or something like that, and you just talk to it, and you can be like, hey, ChatGPT, what temperature should I cook chicken at? And stuff like that is what the majority of reasons why people pull their phone out. You know,
Oh, yeah.
when I'm pulling out my phone just randomly to check something, it's to check the time, it's to do a quick Google search to find out some quick bit of information, and that means that a little device like that could remove 80% of your quick phone uses. So are we going to see devices just completely change in general to where we aren't even using laptops and desktops in their traditional sense? And what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, but what do you think?
I think they are. This is going to go into, I don't have any tinfoil, but this is partially spurred on by what Meta is doing. Meta, obviously everyone made fun of, they're putting all this stuff into the metaverse, and
Yeah.
it seems ridiculous on paper because it's like, you have so few users. What is like? Why are all these dollars being spent on something that has basically no usage? And when I have a Quest 3, which you may have seen on one of our recent videos.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's crazy about it is sort of the augmented reality features it has, where you can type like this. There's no physical keyboard. You're just typing on screen. You're able to see a video. It tracks on. Like, it's actually an amazing device. And that got me thinking with the metaverse and, of course, their investment in Oculus, that sort of the future of operating systems and computing, in a way, could go more toward augmented reality. Sort of like the Google Glass concept. Remember back in 2013, the original Google Glass? Obviously, that was,
It was
super
so
far
bad compared to today, but
a really interesting
it was an interesting
idea.
concept.
And the thing is, the Quest 3 kind of proves we're not that far off. We're still probably a good 5-10 years, but it's within reach. And especially with AI, like you were talking about, most people speak to their phones. They don't actually type because, let's be honest, typing on a phone isn't honestly that convenient. It's kind of irritating because, your hands are bigger than the screen typically. Obviously, there's ways around this, but the voice and with AI, that opens up a whole new possibility of communicating with your devices without ever having to touch them.
Right. Now, there's a lot of things that I look at as well that are external factors from the tech itself, because there's a lot of things that tech could do. It's like cars, right? If you look at the way cars were in the 60s and the way they were advancing, they could be way further than they are today.
Turbine cars,
Yeah.
The whole idea.
But then you have, government regulation, you have, environmental requirements, and all these kinds of things that make cars form different than what they actually could do based off of what engineers and everything are able to create. And so, like, we can think about some of these futures, but one of the things that I look at is the fact as well that humans are also a big wild card. How are they going to receive this technology? How are they going to want to use it? Because I will say, like, the Oculus or the Quest 3, it's really good and it's really cool, but I don't think anything like that is going to be normal until it looks a certain way and feels a certain way. Partly probably lightness is a huge factor, because I don't think a lot of people would want to be wearing that on their head all the time, as well as just style of it,
Well, that's what I was talking about. If you, Lenovo, interesting enough, with the Lenovo Legion Go, makes these glasses that you can just put, they look like sunglasses basically, but they've got a cable, Type-C, you plug it in, and you've got a monitor right there. And I actually even saw, I hate that I don't have the article, but it's a little bitty camera sensor that's like this tiny. It just came out or something. I've seen some stuff about this.
Yeah.
It might be a scam, but the way I've seen cameras though on drones and stuff like that are getting super tiny. And with these glasses, augmented reality, because I know a lot of people in virtual reality were like, virtual reality is going to be the greatest thing. That's definitely something that it's not. I'm going to say safely that virtual reality definitely doesn't have a place because of the current limit. It's way more limited than augmented.
Well, again, the human influence on all of this, we already see today. We've got the smartphones, we've got, laptops, we've got smart TVs, all this kind of stuff. But Gen Z, and it's not just Gen Z, but, we try to relegate things to a specific generation or something. But the truth is, there are a lot of people who are tired of it, and they want to go to a dumb phone or no phone entirely or whatever, and they like to do a lot of things more physical and in person, retro tech and things like that. That's a huge thing right now. And whether that's going to be a trend or if it's actually going to influence the future of technology development and stuff like that, it'll be interesting. And that's where something like the OpenAI device, the little buddy that they created, I personally would not use it because, quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of OpenAI. I'm a little concerned about the idea of that constant, device around me all the time. And I know it's not any better on a smartphone. That's true. But I do see that, a lot of these people who are going to more dumb technologies, they're not going to care about the privacy concerns as much or something like that. They're going to care about the way it makes them feel and how they enjoy to use it. And so, I don't know. It's just like there's the technical capabilities, but then there's the human choice and factors that I think is going to really alter this. And so we'll see. I think you're very correct about the likelihood of VR versus XR. I think that augmented reality has a way bigger future than virtual reality, but how that exactly looks, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, optimistically, maybe not optimistically, maybe dystopian, depending on your perspective, it would be like the glasses you put on, which, again, the technology in different areas exists.
Yeah.
And again, with Meta's backing, despite, everyone, I think it's safe to say a lot of people dislike Meta. I think they're going to continue with it, and I think there's a reason they're continuing with it. But we're going to have to see how that turns out.
We got an interesting comment here. It says desktops will be for software developers in video editing, etc. And I fully agree with that, Vincent, because when you look at it, the professional world is keeping all of these devices.
And that's where the money is for Windows licenses.
Yes.
Like cities, businesses, they're going to pay that because they want the latest updates.
And I think that's one of the, kind of coming back to Windows, I think that could be a good reason why Microsoft doesn't care anymore, because the home premium buyer doesn't exist as much as it used to. And so now they got to figure out how can they stretch home premium to make as much money as possible. Monetization, advertising, all the things that we hate about it, which is going to drive away more and more of the general consumer. However, if you're in a business environment, you're buying Pro or Enterprise or something like that, and you're not dealing with any of that anyway.
Yeah, you don't care. You just need something that keeps your users safe and you're able to manage.
And it doesn't mean that it's still not without some of the normal Windows problems that the consumer is already having to deal with. But that does mean that a lot of the general headache that people can easily point to isn't always going to be there. And so as desktops, I agree, desktops and laptops are probably going to become more of just the business world
Power
device.
Users,
yeah. And what could be cool about that is a place where Linux does fit in really well, because a lot of the power users and stuff like that are more knowledgeable about it. You have IT staff, and they're going to want to, and a lot of them are already running it at home because that's what they love. And so you could see, growth in that area just because that's what people prefer who are working on these devices and making them fit in a corporate environment.
Oh, yeah, and it would be, we've talked continually about Valve's contributions to the Linux kernel. I think with that continuing forward and their dedication to SteamOS, and I would say it's pretty much confirmed a eventual desktop release, it's pretty safe to say, with the backing of finally someone like Valve, that really helps cement for professionals working on Linux and stuff like that. Finally, there's a big company behind them.
No, absolutely.
Because that helps consolidate things, helps get someone rid of the fragmentation that Linux has, because, its greatest strength and weakness is that there's a flavor of Linux for everyone, but that means there's, so many, one project, someone has a falling out, I'll make my own project. So they do this, and then just have these fork, and you have 50 projects.
We went into pretty good detail about that on Tech Over Tea last night with Brody, so definitely make sure you check that out, because we went into, I've got pretty staunch stances on the software development on Linux problem, and a lot of it just comes down to fragmentation and stuff like that. So definitely check out Tech Over Tea when that episode releases here, hopefully in the next couple of days. But yeah, so I think we'll see I think a large shift is not going to only happen in operating systems, it's also going to just happen in devices in general. And I think we're going to see, a lot of, Valve is coming out hopefully with the Index soon. That's going to be a very Oculus type device where it's a full onboard computer and stuff, and that's going to be running SteamOS or something like that.
It'd be interesting to see. I know it's not obviously like a wireless setup, but I'd still be interested to see. I've never used any of Steam's headsets or like even the HTC Vive, but I'm really interested to see on how that, especially with the modern tech they've got going on. I bet half like Alex would play pretty well on it.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see the future of it. But one of the things that I because kind of like what Vincent said, I fully agree with it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether we're even dealing with desktops and laptops consistently in 10 years anywhere other than professional.
Yeah.
But gaming could stick around on the desktop as well, I think.
Well, I think that is technically counts as a power use, because I mean, there's the whole
agree.
GPU market is split up between companies. Well, the AI market didn't really exist for a while, so it was really just professional use and gaming use. But now you've got three, and I think they're trying to cater to everyone, because the gaming sector is a very large aspect of these companies, and I think why Intel's getting back into it, why AMD and NVIDIA have continued. I think that there's definitely a lot of money for them to make, and I think they'll definitely support that. I just can see the average user basically. I mean, there's no such thing as a computer room anymore. There's no such place as
server room. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like most users, other than power users, who has a server at their home other than like a power user?
Oh, a computer room in somebody's personal
No,
home.
I'm talking about the old school 90s computer room where
you had the roll-up desk and it was all back
there.
there.
The big boxy monitor.
Yeah.
Where the place where the computer was. That's where the internet was. But now the internet's everywhere with the internet things.
The old internet sounds. So this is actually, I think we said it earlier, but we're kind of just continuing on a conversation we had in our tier list about the best versions of Windows. And we love tier lists. They're one of our favorite kinds of content to do, and I think you guys have enjoyed them as well. So definitely let us know any tier lists that you guys would like to see. But if you want to go more in detail about this subject, and specifically Windows and all that, make sure you go watch that tier list video. We definitely dived into each version of Windows and everything, and what we think about it.
Very in depth.
Yeah. So go check that out. But like we said, this is our first live episode. We're going to kind of wrap it up here a little bit, but we definitely want to hear from you guys about what you think about this, what you think about the format, can you at least hear us well and all that kind of stuff. So definitely let us know in the comments.
And we'll be updating things, like we're working on, the studio setup, stuff like that. It's a growing process, as NoPlan is. We're constantly improving our craft, and we've got a lot of cool videos, like, Mike has got the Legion Go. That is something that keep an eye out for.
Yeah, Alpha 8713 says, "Do you have a plan yet?" No. We never will. That's one of the fun things about this channel. But what we can plan is basically what you guys want to see. So seriously, if you guys have video suggestions or subjects you want us to cover on the live show, definitely let us know. Like we said, this is going to be very consistent. Kind of our goal right now. We've been trying to release at least a video a month. Now we're trying to throw in a podcast a month or a live stream a month. And so that's going to be really our next step with NoPlan right now, is just getting live stream and video out. That gives us two good pieces of content. We're also going to be making sure that we get some shorts out there, and of course we love our community page. A lot of good Jack is meme master, and so a lot of good memes over on the community page on YouTube, so make sure you check that out. But we're really excited about the future of NoPlan. There's a lot of big things happening with it. So if you have any suggestions, any questions, definitely let us know. But we'll be seeing you guys in a future live in the next several weeks, and it'll be a more planned, more structured actual episode.
There'll be a notification at least a week ahead of time telling you when we're doing it, rather than just us randomly going live on a Friday.
We've had a crazy week, and we even debated not even doing the episode today, but we were like, we've got to stick to this, and Jack was definitely the driver of that, and I appreciate that. But we really wanted to make sure that we started this, and we're going to make sure that we get you guys another episode here soon. And we're going to hit a lot of great subjects, and we're going to definitely produce this out a lot more. So we appreciate you guys watching. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next NoPlan live stream or video.
Yeah, catch you next time.